All right. Good day to you folks today. Welcome to Lucy's Couch. This is Lucy's Couch. I am your host, Lucy. No, that is not my real name, and I will not be giving my real name just because I personally do not feel like it. The first thing you will notice is that the camera quality looks like it is recorded solely off of my laptop, which it is. It is very much recorded solely off of my laptop because I am broke. This is how I'm choosing to start. I'm starting with nothing. It's very underground, and honestly, I kind of like the little, vintage analog feel to it. Maybe I can enhance that some way in editing, which you might be seeing. Now, so with this channel, my goal is, I guess, to really just give video essays, give my advice. Maybe not advice. I have terrible advice, but just give my commentary, give my my response, my opinions in the most educational way possible, in the most helpful way possible, and in the most entertaining and interesting way possible. So for today's topic, I do have something pretty close to some people, pretty close to hearts, pretty damaging, maybe a little sinister, although it won't start off that way. But yeah, so I'm just gonna jump straight into it. I don't even know how to start with this. So again, welcome to the couch. I am in my living room. I want to start off by saying today's shirt of choice. Yes, the shirt of choice. I love shirts. I love funky shirts. I like shirts with cool designs. I like socks with cool designs, and my dog is barking in the background. Alright, so as I was saying, I am a big fan of funky shirts, cool designs, funky socks. Most people wouldn't expect that. I like my funky socks. I like my socks to be funky, silly, and have little designs on them. So today's shirt of choice, in the Halloween spirit, boom. You cannot see it fully, but it is Chucky. I love Chucky. I've seen the all the movies. I've even seen the series. That might be a little controversial. I don't know how well liked it is among people. All I know is that I really did enjoy it. And also in the Halloween spirit, I'm sipping out of a Grim Reaper mug. And what am I sipping? No, not lean. No, not coffee. Not even tea or juice. I am sipping straight Red Bull out the mug like a savage. So, without further ado, welcome to the first episode of Lucy's Couch. Hopefully you find enjoyment in this. Hopefully you like what I'm doing. Hopefully somebody sees this. So let's just jump straight into it. Also, I do want to apologize real quick. If I keep looking around the screen and my eyes are not directly looking into the camera, because I am looking back and forth at my audio software, my audio recording software, as well as my camera, which I have up on screen. That might be a mistake. Please excuse that. From now on, I will be trying my best to look you directly into the soul. So today's world comes with a lot of stresses, and more than plenty of reasons to resent it in some way or another. And honestly, anyone who has lived more than at least 5 years of life in the past decade or so has experienced the constantly rising high stress environments of modernity, the modern world. So not to say that we are all victims of modernity, but us humans tend to feel attacked or almost intentionally overwhelmed by the stresses of everyday life or by those around us. So, as any living, conscious, capable being does, we search for escapism. Escapism is defined as a practice of using entertainment or imagination to distract oneself from unpleasant realities or emotions. It can be a way to avoid pain or discomfort, and can be related to life's challenges and traumatic events or general sadness. Now, there are many forms of escapism, some which I am guilty of myself, which I will get into later on in the video. And so everyone does so, sometimes more than we feel. Oh my god. So, there are many forms of escapism, and everyone does so. Sometimes sometimes more than we feel comfortable to admit, okay? And although it is a natural reaction and an impulsive emotional response, many people find shame in it. because of the way that society looks down on it, or, you know, more so our methods of doing so. A lot of us will find solace in vices such as adult content, overeating, seeking intense rushes of adrenaline, or even just scrolling on our phone for hours, which, you know, we all do. All of which are more or less looked down upon, although almost all of us can relate to it and will make these mundane vices part of our daily routines. Now, whether or not these more common activities should be cut out of our lives or should be seen as somewhat harmless is another discussion for another video, and is honestly such a walking on eggshells sort of topic in which many influential individuals have used to turn against and put down others, that it persuades me to not even want to step into that space. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But in the last decade or so specifically, there is one sort of form or vice of escapism that has become overwhelmingly popular. Somewhat of a disease even. Something that has become alarmingly popular among young people. Alarmingly. Of course, sadly, but of course, I'm talking about substance experimentation and abuse. Now, before I get any deeper into this, I will say this is something that I have struggled with myself in the past, and not to an extreme extent, not to an extent that was putting me in over looming danger or anything, but just something that I had gotten to an unhealthy level for an extended period of time and had put me in compromised positions, and I do fully blame myself for that. But without getting too much into that, I will be moving on and just let that be known. Now, I must admit that I have been an advocate for use of certain compounds that have been proven to be beneficial, i.e. psychedelics. Yes, everyone's favorite, the world's favorite. Everyone loves it right now. So, it is also something that can be a whole other discussion on its own, but I will just say this: psychedelics have been known more recently to be helpful with healing of traumas, creative processing, and mind expansion, sometimes literal mind expansion, due to a few handful of psychedelics that promote neurogenesis, which is the creation of new neurons in the brain, which stems from already existing neutral stem cells. There's a little education for you. They have even proven to promote this activity in the minds of young people, also showing to promote maturing and mind openness in young people. Not saying that young people should do this, not saying that people under 18 or even under 21 should do this. There is just some studies that have shown to prove this a little bit, and honestly, I'm not the big research guy. I'm going to be doing video essays and a little bit of informational content. However, I'm not the big research guy that's going to pull up a bunch of sources and stuff. I'm just going to be honest. If you want to fact check me, you could go ahead and look it up. But I do just want to put it out there that all my information is sourced from credible places. It's sourced from my own knowledge. It's sourced from hours and hours of research over months and months, especially on this kind of topic. A lot of my topics that I will speak on are something that I have deep personal interest in, and you can be more or less comfortable that it will be credible information. But like I said, if you want to fact check any of the things that I say, go ahead and do that on your own time. Although I wish I could say this is what my talking point would be, there is something simply more sinister lurking in communities of teens and young adults. Or should I say, some things more sinister. Alright, so besides that weird little moment that just occurred, you will notice that it is darker in here, and that is because I'm filming this later in the day. I simply sometimes do not have time to just sit in one spot for 2 or 3 hours and to just record something like this. But also, the next segment of this video is going to be a little bit serious, a little bit more darker, a little bit, like I said, closer to hearts now that I've had sort of an introduction segment into what we're talking about today. So consider this more or less a rough around the edges segue into the next part of the video. Okay, so I also do just want to say that this part of the video will be going on unscripted. The first 8.5 minutes or so of the video was scripted because, it's probably important to have a nice, well thought out scripted, at least introduction into what we're talking about, considering it might be a heavy topic, but also I might goof on it a little bit, not gonna lie, but nonetheless, it can be a little serious and close to hearts, which is why, as someone who has experience with things like this, knowing people who struggle with this, struggling with similar things like this, myself, so I figured that I should probably go unscripted on this, just speak from the heart, speak from knowledge, and really just yap. Just freaking yap about it, see where it goes, get some good, raw content. And Mr. Pigman will no longer be helping me out with that, hopefully. So, throughout the past few years, I have known people personally and been somewhat of a person myself who has struggled with substance experimentation and abuse. I have known people that were very close to me that just were unrelentlessly just raging, I hate to say addicts, but addicts. And it was never anything hard. It was never anything like meth or heroin or crack or coke. It was really things that are more known to plague the youth, which is something that I mentioned earlier. Now, this video is about escapism. However, this is more about escapism among the young people of today. I can't say other countries specifically, but I do know that it is a huge epidemic in America. America tends to be so loose with things like drug abuse and other sort of obscenities. Is that the right word? I think obscenities could be a good word. So in America, there is a huge epidemic right now, especially happening with marijuana, THC. Now, as someone who is an advocate for psychedelics, like I mentioned earlier, I also admit I am an advocate for weed. I'm an advocate for that good old THC baby. However, it is pretty, I don't want to say well known, but it is discussed that THC might be known to have a developmental effect on teens and young people. Now, not everyone really chooses to subscribe to this belief or I guess just believe it in general, because there are plenty of famous people or people that you may know personally that smoked with it when they were younger, maybe quit, longer down the line, somewhere else along the lines, or even just famous celebrities. Plenty of celebrities who started smoking when they were young and still smoke today and made a sort of career out of it. And I'm not just talking about Snoop Dogg, people like Seth Rogen as well, and other celebrities like Willie Nelson and everything like that. Somewhere down the line, THC started trickling into the youth. And yeah, young people have always smoked weed. Young people have always smoked weed. A lot of people have always smoked weed. It's just a good choice drug. It's the safer drug of choice. It is pretty fun. It's not overly hallucinogenic in nature. It's not really too much of a downer. It's not too much of an upper. And it gives you this great euphoric, sometimes slightly disassociated feeling. And I'm sure most of you have felt that before. And since it is the drug of choice for a lot of people, people have always smoked it, even going back to ancient times. And this is knowledge that I don't have to speak too much on because it is pretty well known knowledge. But within the past decade or so, it has become overwhelmingly popular. And I think that could be due to a lot of just traumatic events we've faced as a world, as a country, lots of wars, disease, just complete political disaster. And also along with just the rising modernity of the world and the stresses that come with a quickly accelerating modern society, a lot more stresses come with that. A lot of new things come with that. A lot of new anxieties come with that. So just a lot of people take to an escapism. And for a lot of people and a lot of young people, this escapism has become things like cartridges. A lot of young people still also just smoke bud, but carts and edibles and dabs and all these sorts of things have become increasingly popular with young people. And I witnessed people myself who smoke almost exclusively carts, and they will go and buy cart after cart after cart, have 25 carts stacked up in a matter of months, and they will just be always completely out of it, completely dissociated from the world. Maybe not entirely as you might see with other drugs, but dissociated with the world nonetheless, completely addicted to it, becoming a shell of a person, becoming easily agitated if they don't have a cart, having a bad day if they don't have a cart, not being able to sleep right if they don't have a cart, people who will stay up all night just to smoke carts. I am sure you get the point. Now, this is something that I don't have to speak on too much either, because even in middle school and elementary schools now, kids are having carts, they're having vapes, lots of nicotine going around along with the THC. They seem to coincide, so I'm sure I don't have to speak on that too much either. So a lot of people have first-hand experience with this, and this is sort of just the tip of the iceberg, because THC was already so spread worldwide. It doesn't need much of an introduction. It really doesn't need much of an introduction. So this was sort of just a tiny segue into what I'm going to be speaking about. Lots of segues. I'm sure I've said segue probably 2 or 3 times already for absolutely no reason. A lot of these young people, like I was saying, smoking carts, smoking weed, and they do it so often that eventually it becomes not enough, and it becomes too little, or they've just done it so many times that it becomes boring, or they do it so much that it becomes to have almost no effect or little effect, or having to do so much more to get a large effect. A lot of people will look into other substances. They will ask their friends, do you know what I can get? Do you know this? Do you know that? And this can turn into psychedelics. Like I've known a few people personally who will go from just smoking weed to experimenting with psychedelics and hallucinogens, which I will get more into later, excluding the psychedelics. But a lot of young people will look for something else. Now, we fortunately live in a society, a modern society at that, which is kind of what this video is about, but a society that has taught us to really push against drugs. Now, a lot of that hasn't worked, but it still stands in a lot of young people today that these sort of hard drugs that were known more in the older generation and known more popularly in the past, or it's not known, but used more popularly in the past, such as heroin and crack and meth, which a lot of those still have a large community for it, but a lot of that community is struggling and homeless. Not to diss anyone who struggles with that, but that just tends to be the case in a society where we see the effects of this. Almost whenever you go outside, you could see a homeless person tweaking out, or you have just been taught about it so largely by school or family members who have had experience with it in the past. So usually they will not turn towards hard drugs. So they'll be looking for something else. They'll be looking for over-the-counters. Now, this is something completely sinister on its own right. Now, raging card addiction among youth can be pretty sinister. I've seen the effects of it, and I've seen the kind of people that these, youngsters, as some people would say, turn. But anyway, I've seen the kind of people, I guess, these people will turn into, and just completely dissociated from who they once were, or maybe just having a sort of constant agitation or just dislike towards the world without their vice. So when it comes to a certain point, they will be looking towards other things such as hallucinogens, psychedelics, and over-the-counters. Now, over-the-counters are not something that is super popular. It's not widely popular, not as popular as weed or shrooms, or not so much LSD these days, but LSD still goes around here and there. But there are a select group of people that will turn towards over-the-counters. Now, they will probably be going on Google or YouTube looking for alternative, safe ways to still get high and still find a new magic in getting high that they lost when they started using weed to an inappropriate extent. Now, we have seen as a society what happens when this becomes the case. It doesn't happen too often, and it doesn't happen It doesn't happen widely, but we've seen in the past, especially on TikTok, I'm sure you know what I'm gonna say, Benadryl abuse. And yes, it is very stupid. It's idiotic. It's not a fun experience. It's not a fun experience. I'm not gonna go too much into it, but I'm sure you can guess how I'm able to tell you that. And I'm going to tell you that it is such an unpleasant experience that I really wish it on nobody. I wish it on absolutely nobody. It is extremely addictive as well. How exactly it is addictive, I'm not sure. You would never think something that holds so much sinister evil and just such an unpleasant experience within a handful of it would become something addictive, but something about it is just morbidly addictive. So it creates these experiences that would make a person hate the drug itself, and it would start to cause adverse effects even if it might have been somewhat enjoyable at first. And a lot of young people abuse this unknowingly. They see memes about it on TikTok. I'm sure everyone, or at least some of you, have seen a meme or two here and there on Instagram or TikTok. But a lot of people fall bait to this trap, and they get sucked into this drug, diphenhydramine, which is the chemical compound in brands like Benadryl and other sleep aids. Now, diphenhydramine is a deliriant hallucinogen. So you have your classic hallucinogens like shrooms, and you have LSD, you have DMT, you have ketamine. Ketamine is a big one I'll be talking about later on. You have things like PCP, you have Molly. There is a less well-known class of hallucinogens called deliriants, which can be found in plants like datura and bruxmania and belladonna. But it is also found in some sleep aids such as Unisom, Benadryl, and Dramamine under a few different compounds. Now, I'm not going to be going too much into the details of this because I have no intention of promoting this or over-educating someone enough to the point where they may become morbidly interested. But this is a subclass of hallucinogens called deliriants, which will completely distort your sense of reality. It will not create fun hallucinations. These hallucinations will be horrifying in nature, sometimes unfathomable horror. It will completely trick you, it'll twist your reality, and it'll create just these hallucinations that are so realistic they are undistinguishable from reality in that state, to the point where it may even seem normal to you. You could be walking out in the middle of traffic under the influence and not even know it, thinking you're going to your best friend's house. Just things like that. It's not very fun. So this became hugely popular on TikTok. And a lot of the times it was because weed had become not enough for people, or they were, they just were just like, whoa, this is really crazy. I heard it's like acid. I heard it's like shrooms, or I heard it's like this. I heard it's like that. Maybe I should try it. Again, I completely advise against trying this. It is a terrible experience that is easy to become addicted to, believe it or not. You could look up trip reports about it on YouTube. It is one of the most horrifying drugs you could put in your body, not only mentally, but physically. It is extremely dangerous on your kidney, livers, and just any internal organs generally, as well as your brain. So another over-the-counter drug that has become popular among young people and even adults, not even just young people. This experience expands on what the Benadryl thing is, because with Benadryl it's a lot of young people, and then usually just a small niche of adults will go on to do this moving into adulthood, or they might discover it into adulthood. However, it never does become a huge thing for most people, although I must admit there are a few who fall victim to it, i.e. there has been a few deaths within the Benadryl community due to Benadryl, but it never becomes something too big for most people. Now, lurking in the shadows of Benadryl is another drug known as DXM. Now, you might have heard of DXM. It is the best way I could put it to someone who isn't too familiar with what I'm speaking on specifically, it is sort of as if ketamine and shrooms had a baby. Now, that does sound kind of weird and might sound a little stupid. You might be like, bro, what are you talking about? But the only way I could describe it to you is that exactly. So, like DPH or Benadryl, DXM is a drug that you get over the counter and usually combined with other compounds that you can find in common medicines. It becomes dangerous to ingest just because when it interacts with other compounds that you find in popular cough medicines, it becomes dangerous. However, there are several brands that will manufacture cough syrup that contains DXM itself. Now, DXM is dextromethorphan. It is in popular cough syrups such as Delsum. It is in Robitussin, Max Strength. It is in... It comes in little gel caps a lot of the times. You might have heard of triple C's. Triple C's are a whole other thing. They are very dangerous because it is DXM combined with an antihistamine, which in large doses they interact and become very dangerous, extremely disorienting, and almost deadly at some points. It is a drug in the class of hallucinogens known as dissociatives, and dissociatives contain drugs like ketamine and MPCP and MXC, if you know what that is. This ties more so into escapism than Benadryl, because Benadryl is a kind of thing that it becomes so unpleasant that you are no longer escaping from reality. You are trying to escape Benadryl, so do with that information as you will. However, dissociative drugs create an effect that it'll just essentially dissociate you from who you are in your outside reality. Now, there are times where you could be under the influence and still have a foot in reality, but still feel kind of silly or fun and just dissociated in a way and carefree. You might feel relieved of your pain, whether that be physical or mental. So you can see how a lot of people abuse this. Now, it isn't widely as known. It's not widely as known among the internet. However, there are communities on the internet for it. There is plenty of trip reports on YouTube about it. However, it is something that is more known privately, I should say, because a lot of people are ashamed to say, I'm tripping on cough syrup I bought at the store. But it is not to be taken lightly, because it is something that in large doses, or even just moderate recreational doses, becomes a very powerful hallucinogen similar to ketamine. In fact, like I said, it can sometimes feel as if ketamine and shrooms intertwined had a baby, and that is what you are experiencing right now. So with this sense of extreme dissociation, as well as having psychedelic undertones that it creates, a lot of people will turn to this, but more in a private sense. Because, yeah, it's a little embarrassing to say. Like, who the fuck wants to go around telling people I'm tripping on cough syrup I can buy at Walgreens, and it feels amazing? Now, it sucks to say that it feels amazing, but it can. A lot of people will say that it feels like a non-stop orgasm, full-body non-stop orgasm, that it shoots them into different realities, which dissociatives can do. It creates these profound hallucinatory experiences. It makes them feel so fun and silly and goofy. It makes them feel like they could do whatever and take on the world. This ties into this feeling of escapism, because a lot of people fall victim to things like this because they are looking to escape the stresses of everyday life, everyday worldly problems. These types of things really tend to plague our youth. They really tend to plague communities and groups of people. I mean, it was more popular back in the 90s and early 2000s. However, it is still something that is very popular, whether that be privately or publicly. You could go around asking a handful of people at a time, and I can confidently say that one or two of those people will say, yeah, I've tripped off cough syrup before because I was just curious and whatever, and I wanted to feel something different, feel a little drunk, feel a little of this, feel a little of that. Now, ketamine. I won't touch on this for too long because a lot of people already know about it, but ketamine is a substance that's very popular, especially in Europe right now. A lot of people do ketamine. It is another dissociative that can give you these profound hallucinatory experiences. give you these deep introspective experiences, make you feel a little alien, make you feel a little disconnected from the world. It is used in therapy. There is ketamine therapy out there. It is used in clinical senses as well. And a lot of you already know about that. And it is used, again, as an escape. And it's a way to escape and process the outside world from a different place in the universe, if you will. So, with this being put out there by me, this is not just for a promotion to, hey, you should do this, or hey, you shouldn't do this. This is about means of escaping, the extreme lengths that people will go to just escape. Now, whether this is a commentary on the world that we've created and the means that we feel we have to go to escape it, or if it is just a commentary on the means of escaping itself, I can't be too sure of, honestly. It all comes down to the same exact thing, and that is the world that we've created for ourselves. What I'm all boiling this down to is the effects of modernity on our youth. The way that we've created the world to be so non-beneficial to so many different groups of people, it is almost disgusting. And I don't even want to say almost, it is disgusting. And it creates a need for people to look for ways to escape it or completely dissociate themselves from it entirely, which is where we see a lot of addictions in young people pop up. Like I've already said, carts, Benadryl, DXM, ketamine, things like that. But our modern world is honestly so disgusting right now. The politics are all messed up. We don't know which side to pick. Both sides seem to be the wrong side to pick. And there's a lot of alienation going on between communities of people alienating their own people alienating people they don't know, people alienating communities of people they know nothing about. And the world that we have created really puts young people in a tough spot because it makes them feel as if they don't want anything to do with it. It makes them feel like they don't want to get involved. It makes them feel as if they need to pick their minds out of their brains, set it down somewhere else, and go on a mental vacation, in a more metaphorical sense, of course. God damn, I can't speak. So with all of this in mind, I think it is important for young people to reconnect with the world as it once was. And I know that feels almost entirely impossible. But sometimes as people, we really need to just get outside. Go to a forest trail. Go on a hike. Experience the world around us. Take a stand and almost fight against the world around us, if you will. Because the world that has been created by adults is something that is only beneficial to adults. Only beneficial to specific groups of adults, if you know what I mean. And I will not say too much about that. It is self-explanatory. What I think I'm really trying to say here is find yourself. We as people have given up on finding ourselves. We're finding vices. More specifically, we're finding drugs. We're finding harmful means of escapism. And all of this really sounds like a bunch of jibber jabber coming out of my mouth. But if you really pay attention, look at the world around you, listen to what I'm saying, it all ties together. Learn to love yourself before you love anything else. Learn to recognize what's wrong. Stand for what's right. There is nothing inherently wrong with exploring things such as psychedelics and things like ketamine or weed and edibles and all these other things. As long as you're not harming yourself and you're not letting it become a dangerous habit, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. But a lot of people will not see that they are forming these habits, and they will completely lose and destroy themselves in the process of hating everything else around them. Learn to love the world you live in. Learn to have an initiative to fix what was wrongly created, and take life a little bit more serious. Take a little bit more lightly, and try to enjoy the days as they pass on. This is Lucy on the couch, and I'm signing out.